Right. On behalf of the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission and the Ephrata Cloister Associates, welcome to tonight's virtual Ephrata Academy. My name is Elizabeth Berthod, and I'm the Historic Site Administrator at the Ephrata Cloister. As noted previously, I will be monitoring the chat box and will facilitate a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. With the very great assistance of Lydia Jones, our Visitor Services Associate and Social Media Manager, and our technology guru. For those of you not familiar with Ephrata Cloister, this community was founded in 1732 by a German immigrant named Conrad Weissel. The community consisted of celibate members as well as married members and their families. Education was always important at Ephrata. As early as 1742, Brother Obed conducted classes for the children of the married members. Later, the community constructed the Ephrata Academy, which eventually became a public school. At this time, I'd like to introduce tonight's speaker, Ephrata Cloister's curator, Carrie Moan. Carrie has been employed by the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission for over 30 years, working first at Conrad Weiser Homestead and for the last 20 years as the curator at Ephrata Cloister. His presentation tonight will include items from Ephrata's collection attributable to the Pennsylvania Museum Extension Project, which was part of the Works Progress Administration created by the federal government during the 1930s to put individuals back to work. And on that note, Carrie, I will turn this over to you.
All right. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for tuning in tonight. The picture that you see right there on the screen, just about every little miniature piece of furniture we have has that stamp on it, Museum Extension Project, WPA. The collection we have at Ephrata is actually pretty small and pretty much centered right around items that were copied here and made for distribution to school children and libraries throughout the Commonwealth. I have a couple panels of text we'll get through in a hurry. Pennsylvania Historic Museum Extension Project, the MEP, was a sub-agency of the Works Progress Administration, established during the administration of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1935 to put millions of unemployed Americans back to work. In 1939, that name was changed from Progress to Projects Administration. Pennsylvania became the leading participant in the MEP, producing thousands of items for use as visual aids in education. These items included colored illustrations, scale models, dioramas, and marionettes, and many more things. The materials were either distributed free of charge or sometimes sold for a nominal fee to tax-supported Pennsylvania schools, libraries, and museums. The Museum Extension Project ended with the WPA June 30th, 1943 during World War II. There were catalogs issued by the Museum Extension Project of the items that were available, and that way is how you found out what you could get. And there were ordering instructions and even, I think, an ordering blank at the back of the catalog. The first items we're going to look at tonight are some plaster models that were made for Ephrata by the Museum Extension Project. This, of course, is a model of the Brothers' House, it's cast in plaster. The Brothers' House, interestingly enough, was demolished about 1908, so was already pretty much long gone when a decision was made to make this model. Ephrata's models were two of a number of models that were made that could be purchased. One of the reasons why many of these items were made is that it was determined that schools in the early 1900s into the 1920s and 30s didn't hardly have any visual aids of any kind to help in the education process. And so the decision was made that we were going to pay people to make things that distribute to schools to help in the education. And that even included nutritional aids to teach children good nutritional habits. These models are pretty fragile, and you can see that even some features are gone. For instance, there's a post gone here from this porch in the front of the brother's house. Here's the rear of the brother's house, so it would have been the side facing the site. And if you look carefully, you can see that it was made in Harrisburg Unit number 5 of the Museum Extension Project, WPA. There were 7 shops in Pennsylvania that made items. 4 were in Southeast Pennsylvania, 2 were in Central Pennsylvania, and 1 was in the western part of the state in Pittsburgh. The 2 in Central Pennsylvania was Harrisburg, and I believe the other one was Lancaster. There are 2 other models or of one of the sister's house and of course one of the brother's house that are very much different than this, that were produced by the WPA, and I'm not sure about when they occurred, if they were earlier attempts. This model here is much more refined than the earlier model, or what seems to have been an earlier model. We do not have those in the collection. This one you'll know as the Sarin and Zoll. We have 3 copies of this model. This is the best one we have, in the best condition. But even in that case, you can see the chimneys are gone on the sister's house. And there's a few nicks and things on there. I'll leave this up for a moment if you'd like to read that, or I can read it to you. This was the label that came with the unit. The other 2 that we have, the label is missing. I think the last sentence is very interesting. The model depicts the sister's house and the adjoining chapel, which is the smaller building. I'm not so sure the Zoll is smaller if we would take in all the floor space in there. It certainly looks maybe smaller, but it is taller than the sister's house. Here's the Sarin Zoll again from a rear view. You can see once again, this was made in Harrisburg, at the shop in Harrisburg. And unfortunately, the porch here on the side, where there was a side entrance right here, the porch is gone. The back door porch is gone as well. Chimneys are gone, or actually that was the bell tower there. One of the chimneys is gone here. But otherwise, this is in pretty good shape. We're going to take a look at some miniature furniture that was produced by the Museum Extension Project. There were 2 sets of 3 pieces that were made that you could order. The furniture that we have in the collection is a combination of those 2 collections. We don't have all the pieces of one or the other. It's a little bit of a mixture. This plank leg table was known as a Sarin table in the catalog, in the Museum Extension Project catalog. Sorry, I skipped ahead. As you can see, the table, the drawer works, slides out. There's a little bit better view of the plank legs. A side view, I can't really explain why the legs are offset from the tabletop. I don't know if that was just put together by somebody that way or if they were all made like that. And right here, you can see the table that they copied here at the cloister. Currently in the sister's house in what we call the Maria room. But there's the real object that was copied. I will mention at this point that the Wainscot chair here is another piece of furniture that was available through the MEP program. We do not have a miniature copy of that chair though, but that was one of the pieces that was available. Another piece was a miniature copy of the old pulpit. Now the pulpit table is still in the Saron on exhibit, but the lectern that was on top of that table we have in storage. But that model is of the lectern on that table. And the third item that we do not have that was part of the Ephrata materials was what they called a heart chair. And I saw a picture of it online, and it doesn't look like anything that we have at Ephrata or may have been manufactured or used here. I'm not sure how that chair got associated with Ephrata, but it's part of that collection. It looks very much like a 19th or early 20th century chair. The painted furniture that you used to be able to see at antique shops and places. That's what it looks like.
Gary, just one question that came in that might be helpful for people. Can you tell people the approximate size of the furniture?
Sure. The model of this table is approximately maybe 2.5 by 3 inches, the table top. And it's maybe about, it might be about 2.5 to 3, between 2.5 and 3 inches high. That's how small it is compared to the original. Here's a bench called in the catalog a Zoll Bench. We have a number of these in the collection. The likeness is really pretty good. The one thing that this bench does not have, though, that all of our original benches have, is a leg in the middle here to support the middle. That was not included on this bench. This miniature furniture that we have was a gift to us from the Historical Society of Berks County. They were cleaning out and offered these things to us, and we in 2013, and we took them. There were some other duplicates and things in the items they gave us, which many of those things then went to the duplicates went to the State Museum. The State Museum is a collector of WPA items in Pennsylvania. Shippensburg University has a collection. Apparently Westchester University has a few things. But probably the largest collection of WPA items is in the Broward County Library in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They have over 700 items made all around the country by the WPA Museum Extension projects. By the way, I'll mention that Pennsylvania was the model. Well, I did mention that already. It was the model and for all the other states in the country. Here's a comparison of the end of the bench with an original and, of course, the small model. The small model is about 8 inches long and about maybe 2.5 inches high. You can see that the end there, the support legs are pretty well done. Very true to the original over here on the left. And the miniature model on the right. And there, of course, is an original bench on exhibit in the Zoll. You can see it does, of course, have the middle leg in here for support. Here we have what is known in the catalog as a prayer table, a Zoll prayer table. Basically a plank end. You can see the plank feet here, the plank legs, trestle table. This is about 12 inches long. It's a pretty long item. Only about 2.5 inches high, though. And here's the top. Here's the table that they copied. This table is in the Zoll. Excuse me, in the Saron right now. You can see the plank legs on the ends here. I think it was a very good replica. This table here, though, has one solid board for the tabletop. You can't really see it very well, but there is a line down the middle here that I think was to simulate two boards for the top. You can see the line there a little bit. But the original table is one solid board. Now we come to this little gem. This is a small model of a working loom. I could not find this in the catalog, so I don't know when or how it was available for purchase. There were different kinds of models that you could get of things in that catalog, but a loom was not listed in the catalog I looked at. But there were a number of catalogs issued over the years, and maybe this was earlier, maybe it was, or maybe it was available after in another catalog after the one I looked at. Here is the stamp. That stamp appears on all the little pieces of miniature furniture that we have somewhere, usually on the bottom or somewhere where it's not very, very obvious. This is a working loom, by the way. This is a view I took just to show you the workings of it. This item here is the shuttle. And somebody has woven a little bit of cloth. I'm imagining this was very tedious to set this up. The label that you could see, the label on the end there, I'll read it to you. It's a little tough to read because of some damage. This is a duplicate of the loom standing in the cloisters at Ephrata, scale 1 inch to a foot. It is complete in every detail as it now stands. Linen woolsey, and carpets could be woven with such a threading. The original is dated 1764. Well, the label is very nice in every way, but they spelled linen wrong twice, and woolsey is not spelled correctly. And I'm not sure that you could weave carpets on this type of loom. I think this loom was for linen or maybe wool, but I don't believe you could do. Carpet looms are quite a bit different and have a different setup to it. One more thing. The original is not dated 1764. It is dated 1786. And what's interesting about that loom to begin with is the Seventh-day Baptist Society at Ephrata purchased that loom not a whole lot of years before the Commonwealth purchased the cloister in 1941. What I'm saying is that loom was not there from colonial times. It was purchased by the church very much later on. There's a good shot of the shuttle, by the way. Here's a little bit of a view to the top. I wanted you to see how the warp was set in the loom. You can see a little bit of cloth that's woven there. There's a view from the top that you can see the warp a little bit better. And another view from the opposite end, opposite the label. And a view from the opposite side, facing right. This came into the cloister collection in 1973. It was a gift to the site. And here's the original, sitting in what we call the weaver's house. The date is carved into the opposite side. On this side over in here is where the date appears. We're going to look at a couple of pieces of furniture. The next couple of pieces of furniture are not part of the cloister. The 6 items that were copied or available with the name cloister on it. These next 2 pieces of furniture were part of a collection called Early Pennsylvania German Furniture. And this plank leg table is actually number 2 of that collection. There were 11 items in that collection that you could buy. And this was number 2, listed number 2. Has a working drawer, plank leg here. Similar in many ways to the way the cloister tables were put together. Like the little trestle comes through and is attached with a pin. This was a duplicate of what the State Museum had, so we kept it here at the cloister. This, again, was from the Historical Society of Berks County. A picture of the back of the table. You can see how the legs are here, and then there's battens that the top is attached to. The legs are attached to that, but you can see how they notched it out for this drawer to slide. A corner cupboard, part of that collection. This is number 8 in that collection of 11 early Pennsylvania German furniture items. There were 27 pieces of wood put together to make this little corner cupboard. So I would imagine there was probably people making the pieces and maybe other people assembling the pieces, but it took 27 small pieces of wood to put this together. And as you can see, the doors work and so does the drawer. This piece here is about 6 inches high and maybe about 3 and maybe about 3 inches, maybe 2 3/4 inches wide this way, and about 6 inches high. The table is very comparable in size to the so-called Sarin table that was copied at Ephrata. This is a little bit smaller than that. The tabletop was larger on the Ephrata piece. Those are little brass, the heads of little brass brads that they used for the pulls. I think these little butt hinges are very interesting. They're very tiny, but somebody must have put them together, made them. Now we're going to get into a couple of items that we were very fortunate to add to the collection last year. There were 2 posters, travel posters made to promote the cloister in the 1930s. These were not made by the museum extension or made through the museum extension project. This was made through let me double check my note here. The Federal Art Project in Pennsylvania produced the 2 travel posters. The first poster here, and if you can see that, the poster was designed by Catherine Millhouse. Both these posters were done by her. If you'll give me a moment here, I want to tell you a little bit about Catherine Millhouse. She designed these 2 travel posters to promote Ephrata Cloister through the Works Progress Administration of the federal. The subunit was the Federal Art Project in Pennsylvania. This Federal Art Project was designed to fund visual arts in the United States by employing artists and artisans. As many as 10,000 individuals worked during the life of that program. Catherine Millhouse, her dates are 1894 to 1977, was a native of Philadelphia. She was born into a Quaker family. She attended the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts and also the Pennsylvania Museum School of Industrial Arts. The Pennsylvania Museum School of Industrial Arts was split up and is now known, the museum end of that school is now the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And the industrial school is now called the University of Arts in Philadelphia. She illustrated magazines to help pay for her schooling. As a student at the Academy, she was the 1934 Crescent Traveling Fellowship winner, which enabled her to study abroad for a little while. I'm going to go to the next picture while I finish this narrative. Between 1935 and 1940, Catherine was the supervisor for the Philadelphia Federal Art Project. And part of her responsibilities was the creation of posters promoting Pennsylvania. Another poster that she designed of local interest is a poster promoting Lancaster County. The poster is very nicely done. It has Amish people and sort of bucolic farm scenes mixed in the design. Very nice poster. This is a sister, of course, who is superimposed over a stylized image of the great Ephrata lily that's taken, of course, from our Christian ABC book. The paper that these are silkscreen on paper that is kind of has a matte finish, and the paper is a little fragile now, I think, after all these years. It's not poster paper of today, you might say. That might be glossy and a little bit heavier weight. I'm going to go back to the other one, give you one more look at that. This is sort of has a maroon, of course, a maroon background to it. The posters were originally, well, at least they were owned by antique dealer and collector Richard Mockamer of Hamburg, Pennsylvania, and they were consigned at Horse. And we were able to buy them at Horse auction from the person that bought them there at that time. They reconsigned them to Horst, and then we were able to get them last January, a year ago. And then we'll go back to the blue one. That pretty much concludes the items that are in our collection from the WPA. And if anyone has questions, I would be happy to answer them or try to answer them.
We do have some questions, Carrie. Let me pull those back up here. All right. So our first question, I got to find it again now. How rare are these items today?
That's a very good question. I don't think they become available very often. Let me put it that way. In many years, I've only ever been offered or only ever seen the items that we got from the Historical Society of Berks County. That is the miniature furniture. Now the houses, the model houses, seem to come around a little bit more than some of the other items. And since there was no other things that were made for Ephrata, such as prints of pictures of different things, that kind of thing, there were also marionettes made that you could act out plays to teach children things. Of course, there were no marionettes made. That would have been interesting, though. I think marionettes of brothers and sisters, maybe. But I think these things are scarce. And I think there was some question at one time about, well, can these things be sold, since they were manufactured by the government and apparently were supposed to be kept in the public sector. That's why they were not made available to organization, they were made available to schools, libraries, museums. They weren't available to the general public. But they obviously must become available at times somewhere, because the collection down in Broward Library in Fort Lauderdale, the 700 some items mostly were collected by two individuals that placed them there at the library. On eBay, I've seen there was a collection of, I think, 6 different buildings from Pennsylvania that was available on eBay maybe 10 years ago. I think there was a Jenny Wade house and a Neary Block house and some others on there. There's a Conrad Weiser house, a Daniel Boone house. They were available, and I think the bid, they were in San Francisco, and I think the minimum bid was $450 or something like that. And I think it was on a little while. I think somebody eventually bought them. I would imagine the shipping on them must have been tremendous, because they're plaster and they're pretty fragile. We were offered a collection. We were offered a person in Ephrata a few years ago had a collection of these, small collection of buildings, and they offered them to us. And we already have the 2 Ephrata ones, so we really were not interested. I did reach out to the State Museum that does collect WPA items, and they declined because I think they had all the items. The items in that small collection were a little rough, and we had to respectfully decline the offer from this person in the Ephrata area. So other than that, I can't say they are that readily available. I think they're all pretty scarce. And I think over the years they got broke or thrown out, and hard to find today.
The catalog you mentioned, do you have a copy? Do you know where one can be seen? Is that online?
I saw that online. I do not have a copy of that catalog, but you can see it online. If you type in Museum Extension Project, generally one of the first few things that comes up on Google is the Broward County Library Collection. And if you wade through that website a little bit, you can see a catalog page by page on that site.
Okay. There's a question about how big the loom is total. I was thinking it was about 6 by 6. It says it's 1 inch to 1 foot.
Yeah, I think it's a little bigger than 6 by 6. It's a little longer than it is high, I believe. Maybe 6 by 8, 6 inches high, 8 inches long, maybe 6 inches wide, somewhere like that.
The posters show a date of 1730. Is that an error?
Yes. It's like some of the postcards that were issued about Cloister years ago. I don't know where they came up with some of the dates that are in captions of posters. It says 1730 here too. The society used to celebrate their starting date as 1728 when they began in the Conestoga Valley, when Beisel split away from the Brethren Church. And then 1732 was another anniversary date when Beisel moved, of course, to where the cloister is today along the Cocalico Creek. But where 1730 comes from, I don't know.
Can you please explain again the purpose of these miniature furniture items?
These items were all made as aids, and I think in particular for educational purposes. In the 1930s, yet, if you can imagine, there were a lot of one-room schoolhouses still around in areas, and I don't think they were very well equipped. And this was designed to give teachers aids to help better educate their students. Some of the things that were made were lantern slides of pictures of things that they could show those to the students. There were marionettes that they could put on plays about things, about subjects, maybe about better nutrition or maybe cleanliness. There were lots of what they called plates, pictures of things like costumes of different ethnic groups around the world, or pictures of buildings from around the world. Lots of things like that. Even the United States, pictures of things in the United States, maybe Southwest Native Americans, comes to mind since I've looked at some of that. Scale models of things. There were scale models of ships available. And of course, you saw that there were plaster models of, buildings here from Pennsylvania. There's all kinds of things that were done. And these were meant to be visual aids for educating students. And not just, and don't get me wrong, not just for one-room schoolhouses, but for any schoolhouse, any public school institution.
Okay, where are we? As a doll lover and a dollhouse lover, I'm wondering if you'll be creating an exhibit with these items.
Well, good question. The furniture, not too long after we got the small miniature piece of furniture, they were on exhibit for a little while in the visitor center. And the Loom and the brother house, Bethania, and the Saal and the Saron, that was also on exhibit for a while in the visitor center in a small case that's right inside the door there in the lobby. We have not put the posters on exhibit yet. And some of the problem is that in the visitor center, we don't have a lot of wall space available for them, but eventually they will be put out on exhibit. And maybe at some point we change the exhibit around a little bit, we can add some of these things. We do have a case of a case in the visitor center that is for items that are like more of 20th century things about the cloister. And I'm thinking we could add a few of those items to that case. Our collecting plan at the cloister is pretty strict on what we collect, but I consider these items part of what is called the later history of the cloister. And that is included in our collecting plan, things of the so-called later history of the cloister.
So on the poster you have up right now, we have a question about that one. You can see the cloister buildings behind the sister down at her feet there by the birds.
Yes.
But can you make out the design of the darker area that the 1730 is printed on?
That's a really good question, and I don't really have a good answer for that. I am not sure what that's for, why that was designed into the poster. I don't believe it's a printing mistake. It was something done in a darker ink. I'm sorry, but I don't really have an answer for that.
How do you spell the name of the Florida museum that has these?
Okay. The museum is the Broward County Library, BROWARD County Library, and it's located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. If you would go to Google and type in Museum Extension Project or Pennsylvania Museum Extension Project, that is one of the first things that will come up in the Google search, is that Broward County Library.
Let's see, there was another. So going back to how the purpose and for using them in the schools, how would the teacher obtain these items?
In the catalog, there was instructions on how to order, and I believe there's an order blank in the back of the catalog that they could order that in Pennsylvania. Broward County also has a copy of a New Jersey Extension Project, Museum Extension Project catalog as well that you could look at page by page. But, there were instructions on how to order for the teacher. And I think depending on the circumstances, the items could be given for free to the teacher at that school, or at very, very low cost.
Let's see. And of course, here's the one, David Gantz, I know you were on there. I saw your name come through. Are there reprints of the posters?
Well, there are reprints. There are reprints available of these posters. They're pretty much in the public domain, and I think for just about as long as I've been at the Cloister, I would see them online, especially sometimes on eBay. The people would be trying to sell them online, and usually these sellers had lots of different posters, WPA posters for sale, varying sizes and quality. I think they went to the Library of Congress or the National Archives, I think the National Archives, and they would just copy them out of the collection and produce posters. So they are available online, although I think we're attempting to try to offer them in our own museum store. Recently, I did see a poster of this particular poster right here, a copy, which I thought was pretty nicely done. It was about 1.5 times larger than the original, but I thought it was very nicely done.
Okay.
It was printed on shinier paper, which was a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier quality too. I think it would hold up a lot better than these hung up. Both these posters were hung up somewhere at some point in time because there are tack holes along the top. So they were hanging somewhere way back.
How big are they?
I just got an in-house question here about how big these posters are. They're about 12 by 18.
And how did the Broward County Library come to acquire so many of the WPA items?
That was a collection that 2 people had put together and placed there. I'm not sure what the circumstances are, if it was a gift to the Broward County Library or if it was sold to them, or maybe it's there on loan. I'm not sure of that, but I get the impression maybe this was a gift to the library. But 2 people assembled those. I think it was a couple, a man and wife, and they donated that to the library. They must have searched all over the place for those items.
Okay. Well, Carrie, this was very interesting. I thank you for sharing these artifacts with everyone tonight. I find them particularly intriguing. Just the tiny details in all of the furniture are absolutely incredible. So thank you for sharing those tonight.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. You know, you can always reach out to me at the Cloister if you have a question. My email is always the best way to get a hold of me.
And Carrie will be back next month on March 11th. Our virtual academy will feature artifacts and manuscripts newly acquired by the Ephrata Cloister. Sign-up information is on our website, www.ephratacloister.org. And also like to remind everybody about our winter history class series. It's not too late to sign up for the series or an individual session. All that information is again on our website, and you can find all that information there. Lydia, can you put that in the chat box for us? And I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you back next month or at history class. Thank you all and have a lovely evening.
Good night, everyone, and thanks for having fun with artifacts.